Good morning. So welcome everyone to this class on Introduction to Meditation, as we have the meditation working group for coming to the table, utilizing meditation as one of the healing resources that are available. And so I'd like to introduce our workshop facilitator today, class teacher today, and that's Jennifer Stanley. And it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Tom. It's wonderful to be with all of you here today, and also to be a part of coming to the table in this meditation working group. I think one of the beauties and the challenges for any of us, but especially people in coming to the table, is learning to wake up with each other, learning to wake up together. Rather than individuals. And I really see meditation practice and mindfulness practice as a vehicle to really help in coming to the table's mission of undoing systemic racism. Because that kind of clarity of mind can really hone in on how systemic racism operates within us and in the wider world as well. I also want to say, before I begin the guided meditation, that really being in community is a really important component of meditation and mindfulness practice. There's the emotional nurturing, there's calling on others to help us to see if our insights are genuine, and they can help reflect to us how we may have changed or not changed. And the session that we're doing here today is a very brief introduction to meditation. A lot of times, there are 6-week courses or even multi-year courses on meditation and mindfulness. So please understand I'm leaving quite a lot out. And we do encourage you to go to your local communities and see if you can find a teacher there or groups that are practicing, or maybe even start a group yourself. And there are lots of resources on the Coming to the Table website that can help you with that as well. There's also online applications like the Insight Timer that have guided meditation. So you might want to check that out too. And let's see. So now, to begin the guided meditation, I always think it's a good idea to actually to have that experience before I start talking about what meditation and mindfulness are. So I invite everyone to get into a comfortable position. If you're sitting on a chair, you can put your feet on the floor. You can have your hands on your thighs, or your hands cupped in your lap. If you like, you can close your eyes, or you can have your eyes slightly open, looking down at the floor in front of you. Whatever is comfortable to you. And there's no requirement that the eyes be completely closed. And then just settle into the body for a moment, just noticing the posture. In fact, you might examine your posture from the inside out. Just noticing the curve of the spine, the shoulders. You might even let the shoulders drop a bit and relax back and down. And you might notice too, is there an upright quality to your posture right now? And in the beginning of meditations, it's often helpful to sweep through the body in a body scan, inviting relaxation wherever it might be appropriate. And the emphasis is on invitation to relax. This is not a demand or any kind of requirement. Just noticing the sensations at the top of the head, just sweeping to the forehead and brow. Maybe letting the brow be smooth. Maybe relaxing the eyes. And noticing the sensations at the cheeks and jaw. Maybe even purposely unhinging the jaw a bit. And noticing the sensations at the chin and lips. Even inside the mouth. Perhaps noticing sensations of smoothness or hardness, softness, dampness or dryness. And then noticing the sensations at the upper lip. Perhaps you can detect the breath at the upper lip. Or perhaps you can notice the breath at the nostrils, right at the entrance of the nostrils. And then noticing the sensations on the outside and inside of the nose. And then opening the awareness to the whole face. And then noticing the sensations at the ears, both tactile sensations and the way the ears receive sound. The ears effortlessly receiving sound. And then noticing the entire head, from the outside to the inside, the space within the head. And then when you're ready, just allowing your attention to flow down to the neck and throat. Inviting relaxation where appropriate. And into the collarbone and shoulders. Releasing the shoulders. Noticing any sensations from the inside out around the shoulders. Perhaps even detecting movement in the shoulders with the breath. And then allowing the awareness to sweep into the arms, the upper arms, the elbows, lower arms, wrists and hands. and each of the fingers and thumbs. Feeling the sensations of the arms and hands from the inside out. Noticing the aliveness here. And then when you're ready, opening the awareness to the torso, and especially the heart area. Perhaps noticing what mood there is at the heart right now. Perhaps there's a quietness or a contentment, maybe a kind of anticipation. It doesn't matter what's present. It's just good to know who's visiting your heart at this moment. And then when you're ready, noticing the sensations deep within the torso. Perhaps the sensation of the beating heart, the breathing lungs, the movement of the diaphragm and belly. You might even ask yourself, how does breathing express itself in this torso? And as we do this exploration together, see if you can bring a kind curiosity to your exploration. Being kind to yourself, to what you discover. Really wanting to know it directly. Not through concepts or preconceived ideas, but to know it directly, right in this moment. And then when you're ready, noticing the pressure on the sits bones and the sitting posture. Just knowing what those sensations are like. And then letting the awareness flow into the legs, the upper legs, knees, lower legs, ankles, and feet, all the way to the toes. How is the life force being expressed in your legs and feet right now. What does the life force energy feel like at the soles of the feet right now? And whenever your mind wanders during this meditation, you might even take a moment to pause and appreciate that you've noticed your mind has wandered off, exploring sensations or the breath. It's a beautiful moment. It's a moment of wakefulness. Really get to know what that feeling is like of being wakeful. And then when you're ready, you can go back to exploring body sensations or the breath or whatever is your meditation anchor. And if you like, you can open your awareness to sensations in the entire body, the body as a whole, from head to toe, inside and out. Really getting to know this living life force energy. How is it being expressed in any one moment? How it changes from moment to moment. Thoughts and emotions are also an expression of the life force energy. So you can notice them too, just like you would a sound or light through the eyelids. Not engaging them, but just noticing their arising, living their own short life, and then fading away. And if you like, you can continue noticing tactile sensations in the body, perhaps thoughts arising. Or you can place the attention on the breath itself, wherever you feel it most easily, at the chest or belly, the nostrils, perhaps a sensation of the body itself breathing from head to toe. And in these last few moments of the meditation, may we touch into the knowledge that we belong to the earth. And may we know for ourselves this belonging to the earth. May we know that this life force energy within us is connected to the earth. And the earth is connected to us. And may we know the connection to the ancestors. May their wisdom flow to us. May their wisdom and compassion flow to us and to our world. And then when you're ready, you can gently release the practice and gently open your eyes. And feel free to stretch or readjust as you need to. So that was a meditation that gave you a flavor of a couple different things, and I'll speak to those in a moment. I think one of the things that's important to remember, particularly for me in my own practice, is remembering the ancestors that have come before us. Human beings have been on this planet for around 200,000 years, and people have been meditating in all cultures all across the world for thousands of years. So I like to touch into that connection, that ancient connection. So to begin, I'm going to talk a little bit about what is mindfulness, because mindfulness is a technique or a process that is used in meditation practice and also in daily life. You can think of it as like shining a light in the darkness and illuminating what's there. And very often it'll illuminate maybe wholesome things. It might illuminate grasping, aversion, or delusion. It's just really about knowing what's there. But to take one step back from mindfulness, just to look at the words consciousness and perception. You know, we can be conscious of sensory input, seeing things, tactile sensations, tastes, smells, sounds. That's a consciousness, a knowing of things as they're happening. Even knowing, you could say, the mind objects. You can know when thoughts arise and things arise in the mind as well. And that's a kind of knowingness, a kind of consciousness. And then there's also perception. Perception is recognizing what is being known. So you know it's a thought. You know it's a thought about where you grew up, or it's a thought about what you'd like to have for lunch. And it also labels it for future use. So if you hear a sound, it would label it as bird or bell or blue sky or joy or fear. And it might even go further and label it as robin or raven. And what's important about perception is it distinguishes what is being known. So, for example, in a piece of music, you can distinguish the flute from the cello. You can distinguish the pepper from the paprika in a soup, or you can distinguish fear from excitement. So that's just a very brief overview of those two. And then coming to mindfulness. So mindfulness is more than just simple knowing or perception. You know, if you've ever seen a baby or a kitten or dogs, even an amoeba, you can see that they are knowing certain sensory experiences, and they're perceiving them and they're interacting with them sometimes. Joseph Goldstein likes to refer to this as black lab consciousness, the black Labrador retriever kind of dog. You can see them knowing different sights and smells, and they're really literally being led by their noses. You know, they're moving around, reacting to things, but they're more than likely not really being mindful of what they're doing. They're just like moving around and whatever whim they smell, they're moving. And so that idea of if we're kind of letting ourselves be led by our nose, or letting ourselves be led by our desires or our aversions, we're not really being mindful in that moment. So mindfulness really includes an observing power of the mind, being in the present moment, and with also a patience and a kind of equanimity. It's that idea of really coming face to face with what is happening in any moment. There's a non-judging quality to that, and allowing, and that's the equanimity part. So it's not like you're trying to eradicate things that you notice with mindfulness. It's more about exploration and curiosity. And we can, when you first start to meditate, though, that can be a challenge to let go of one's preferences and judgments. But we can learn to do that through this process. And when we are patient, we can actually be with pleasant things, unpleasant things, and neutral things for the intent of getting to know them better. Mindfulness also has the quality of calling to mind or remembering. So for example, if you are working on a task, you are going to remember to stay with that task, perhaps noticing what's happening in your body, the different body movements. If you're meditating and following the breath, you're remembering to pay attention to the breath. So that element of remembering, there's also the element of wholesomeness in mindfulness. That doesn't come across a lot of times. A lot of times when people talk about mindfulness, they're actually talking about being conscious or knowing sensations and perception, which is an essential part that you bring into mindfulness. But mindfulness is really a wholesome state of mind that's really free from holding on to things or pushing things away or just having the mind kind of spin in circles. There's a real illumination that happens when you're mindful, because you really know what's happening inside of you. You know, basically it can illuminate your conditioning and your habits of mind. And then mindfulness is wonderful in daily life, in meditation, but mindfulness is not enough either. I mean, it's really important to get to what are we learning from being mindful? And that's where the wisdom component comes in. Because it is, I heard Joseph Goldstein talk about this, it's possible to put your hand in a fire and be mindful of what's happening, you know, burning, you know, sizzling, the smell of burning flesh, and then but if you're not bringing wisdom to it, you're not recognizing that this is information and you need to take your hand out, then you're missing the point of mindfulness. So you've got to know what to do. And that is the tremendously powerful point of this, is knowing how our minds work. And for those of us at Coming to the Table, knowing how systemic racism works within us and in the world, really shining a light on it, and getting to know it so we can have the wisdom to undo it. And let's see. And once we get to know what's going on in our minds, then we can also know how to nourish our minds and how to protect them. And actually increase wholesome qualities in the mind. So it's actually during a sitting meditation practice or even throughout the day, it's helpful to check periodically and notice what are the qualities of mind in any moment. Is there a grasping going on or kind of a pushing away? Is there some kind of confusion where the mind is just kind of spinning in circles? Or is there a wholesomeness there? Maybe generosity, maybe an openness or a spaciousness. Really just keying into that, because then you're really awake to what's happening. And let me just check the time. Let's see. And as I said, mindfulness can help us deactivate any kind of conditioning, especially for those of us here at Coming to the Table, the conditioning of racism and prejudice. So that's the mindfulness piece. So in meditation, I'll talk about meditation now. Meditation, too, can be a powerful vehicle for undoing racism. I sometimes like to think of it as deactivating the systemic racism app that might be running in the background for us, even noticing that it's running in the background, and then learning how to deactivate it. This past Wednesday evening, I had the great good fortune to hear the teacher Ruth King speak here in the Washington, D.C. area. And I loved how she said, racism is a disease, is a heart disease, and that mindfulness is a medicine that has the healing potential for us to remember who we really are as human beings. So what is meditation? You could say it's a training, a mental training of attention that awakens us beyond our conditioned mind and our habitual thinking, and reveals the nature of reality to us. And as you're meditating, you employ mindfulness practice. You could think of it as kind of an effort, meditation as an effortless presence, although sometimes when people are beginning to meditate, there's a lot of wanting to effort around that. And I'll talk about that in a minute. You know, there are actually a lot of different forms of meditation, and I won't get into those now, but you might want to explore some of them. There's one-pointed concentration, there's momentary concentration, there's choiceless awareness. Those are three broad categories of meditation. And the postures of meditation are actually technically limitless. I know a lot of people think that sitting meditation is the way to meditate, but in some of the most ancient texts, it talks about sitting meditation, standing meditation, walking meditation, and lying down meditation. So it's really in any posture of your life you can practice meditation. They'll have, some of them will be different in the kinds and depths of concentration you can have, but you can certainly practice meditation anywhere or anytime. I would also say something about meditation anchor. If you're doing something other than choiceless awareness, the meditation anchor is something that you choose to come back to, kind of a home base. So a lot of people choose the breath, sometimes sound, tactile sensations in the body. There's also other kinds of meditation called, for example, loving kindness meditation, where you repeat phrases or have the experience of sending loving kindness to all beings. And so when you have your meditation anchor, you're making that commitment to stay with that anchor. And it may be one-pointed, where you stay with the breath, and if there's a sound, you kind of let the sound go and remain with the breath over and over again. If you are doing momentary concentration, you might pay attention to the breath, and then if there's a sound, you might notice the beginning, middle, and end of the sound, and then go back to the breath. And then if you noticed like a tingling in your toe, you might notice the beginning, middle, and end of the tingling in your toe, and then come back to the breath. So there are lots of ways to play with a meditation anchor. And it's, I would say, choose one that you can experience most easily, that maybe even brings you some pleasure. I think that's often a misnomer in meditation, is that it's a grim practice. And actually learning how to gladden your mind, bring pleasure, is a very positive thing to do. And some other helpful tips in meditation practice. There's a a Zen master who has the saying, to be without anxiety about imperfection. And I would say if that's one thing that you take away from this, is to really don't be anxious about having a perfect meditation or being a perfect meditator, the perfect posture. Really just come to the practice with curiosity and kindness and a sense of exploration. And with that, I want to say that thoughts are okay. This is not about extinguishing your thoughts. I think that's actually would be impossible to forcefully extinguish your thoughts, and it might hurt as well. So thoughts and emotions are okay. It is not the job of meditation to stop emotions or thoughts. They're sensations, just like tingling or sound. And what we're doing in meditation practice is creating the conditions for the mind to unknot itself. For example, like in systemic racism and other kinds of conditioning of the mind, it can be so knotted up that if we go at it and try and do it in an analytical or discursive way, we're going to frustrate ourselves. But we can create these conditions where the mind knows how to untie itself, that can allow its own wisdom to come forward. We really come face to face with things in a non-judgmental way. So for example, we might, if we're in sitting practice, or more likely even in daily life, we can say, oh, there's a racial stereotype arising. Oh, I'm feeling terrified at seeing a patrol car. Or maybe something like, I'm about to dominate a conversation again, or dismiss someone's experience or feelings. Or maybe like, oh, I need a break from this conversation because I'm doing too much caretaking. My caretaking mode is coming in. So that kind of wisdom, can just start to arise. Even if you have a formal sitting meditation practice and then you go out into life, the mind really does start to become much more flexible. So you notice these things about yourself and about the world and other people. I want to encourage you to refrain from striving or trying to make something happen when you're in a sitting meditation practice, or even in daily life, because that can actually hinder things. If you're striving, or like, I'm trying to get back to where I was yesterday or 3 days ago when I was filled with bliss and all of that, that can really get in the way. And remember to invite relaxation of the body, the heart, the mind. This is not a demand, it's an invitation. And you can do that over and over again, because allowing yourself to be relaxed as you explore this can be very helpful. And as I mentioned earlier, being curious about what's happening, what is going on in this being? What is happening in the world around me? How can I be curious about it? How can I be kind to myself, particularly starting with oneself, being kind, particularly when we start looking inside and we see things that, we might have never known they were there, seeing that we stereotype people, or that we're afraid of certain people, or we maybe even feel hopeless about a situation. Seeing those things can potentially feel discouraging. So we really have to be kind to ourselves, because we're trying not to be judgmental of what's there. We don't have to take it personally, in a sense, because the longer we practice meditation, we realize, oh, one moment we're joyful, one moment we're sad, one moment we're fearful. We're a process that's constantly changing. It's also helpful to bring a kind of gentle ardency to the practice, really sticking with it. And, when, maybe your mind keeps wandering off over and over again, and people might just sort of want to throw in the towel. So if you can bring a gentle ardency, like I'm going to see what this is like, even though my mind keeps moving away from the breath. I'm just going to see what this process is like over and over again. And particularly in cases like that, or other cases, if we start to notice a struggle in our meditation practice, you can actually take that as feedback, as information. It actually, a light should go off for you. That it's exciting to notice that a struggle is going on, because then you can even explore what is going on. That's where the maybe inquiry part can come in. You know, what am I unwilling to feel? Or what wants expression, but maybe I'm afraid, you know, to have it express itself. Even just asking the questions, you know, what is being known right now? What's true? What am I believing? You know, what belief do I have? And this is not a discursive or analytical process. This is really an embodied process. The knowing and the wisdom that arises when you ask those kinds of inquiries, you really know it in the body itself. And let's see, we just have a few more minutes here. There's actually many, many more techniques that can be used in meditation practice, like particularly if a strong emotion has arisen. There's an acronym called RAIN, and it's online. You can find a lot of information online about it for free, but it's about recognizing what is happening in the moment, investigating, or I'm sorry, recognizing and then allowing in a non-judgmental way, just maybe allowing the joy to arise, allowing the fear to arise, whatever it is, without trying to manipulate it in any way. And then investigating that inner experience. What does this fear feel like? Is it a tingling in my knees? Is it a burning in the soles of my feet, or an ache in the pit of my stomach? Really getting to know this in an embodied way. And then the last piece is the non-identification as well as nurturing. You could say it's like rain with two ends. So it's really knowing that this is just an expression that's moving through you at this moment. It's not the entirety of who you are. It's just one expression in one moment. And then the other end is really nurturing with yourself, being compassionate with yourself with whatever has arisen. Because as I said, sometimes it can be challenging, particularly in the work we do here at Coming to the Table. It can be painful as things arise. So we really need to add in the nurturing piece when we practice meditation.